We need a new social contract to extend basic fundamental rights to all people. These rights include healthcare, education, jobs, a livable wage, and a clean and safe environment for all.
And today we have Jesse Rubens with us, who is a longtime progressive activist here in South Florida. Jesse Rubens is a youth votes organizer, a policy writer, and a progressive activist. Jesse Rubens, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure.
So, like I said, let's jump right in. Let me understand just how many campaigns have you been involved with? Because I saw a Facebook of you on Twitter with Andrew Gillum when he was running for governor of Florida. So please tell our audience what kind of experience you have with activism, what kind of campaigns you've been involved with. And not just candidates, of course, but like causes and such.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it really started 2015, 2016, just kind of getting involved with the Democratic Party, trying to find my way. I wound up on a congressional campaign in Orlando. It was this guy, Bob Poe. He was running for the seat that Val Demings eventually won. So we flipped a seat, but I am sad my friend Bob did not win. He was pretty incredible. And then I moved back down to South Florida. I was in Orlando for a couple of years in school. And while I was in South Florida, this was right before the 2016 election, I was working for one of those 501c3 groups, For Our Future. And, it kind of it really was a shock when Trump won that, it radicalized me. It really did. It kind of gave me the push I needed to say, okay, this is the work that I'm committed to doing, not just with one organization, but there is so much humanitarian suffering that's already happening and so much that I was predicting, which largely has come true, that, I need to stay in this fight so that I can help solve our social problems. And then, the Gillum campaign, oh my God, I was excited about that campaign. I really was. I think Andrew Gillum was a really great candidate. I think he was a really kind person. And I appreciate that he's come forward recently to talk about how losing has been difficult for his mental health and how he's dealt with alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And, that kind of authenticity, I think, is super helpful.
I think that the radicalization that you say that happened to you, I think it is happening to a lot of people that were in other times, in peaceful, prosperous times, pre-pandemic, were not necessarily looking to get involved in politics, but they see this as not a moment in which you necessarily need to push for specific legislation, but that I don't want to sound cliche, but kind of like the line where Joe Biden is going, like the battle for the soul of the nation, where it is a clash of cultural values. But okay, but Jesse, let me understand this. Were you a Bernie bro or were you on the Warren camp?
I was in the Warren camp. In fact, I was positioning myself, but I do have an Elizabeth Warren poster in my room. It's off camera, but yeah, I was all about the big structural change.
But why is that? Like, because I once asked a lady who was supporting Warren, and I just said, well, I've listened to what you're saying and what you want. Isn't that what Bernie wants? And she said, no, but Bernie talks too loud. Like, Bernie yells. But so I want to know, why is it that you chose Warren over Bernie?
I don't mind the yelling, and there was a rumor that Bernie might be Secretary of Labor under Biden. Sounds good to me. I think that'd be
Working
awesome.
class all the way.
Yeah. I mean, we could get some sectoral bargaining going on. We could, a lot of good stuff. Anyway, but for me, so much of the problems we face are so much bigger than just one policy here or there. It's about the structures. Like, for example, the filibuster. That was one of my huge issues. The filibuster is this rule, for those of you that don't know, that says that in the Senate, instead of having a simple majority of 51 votes to pass legislation, you need 60 votes. And to me, it just seems so absurd that we would retain this rule that has a history of being used to preserve segregation. And it was used in opposition to the civil rights era. And if we keep the filibuster, we have no chance at passing climate action, passing anything on guns, anything on labor, anything at all. I personally think we need to abolish the entire Senate, and we need to just have a House of Representatives, because the Senate itself is also, I think, a historically racist institution that is in the way of progress. So that kind of systemic,
and it doesn't even reflect the amount of population you have. I mean, how can a small state have just 2 senators, and then you see California with so much population, 2 senators
exactly.
also.
It's all about, small states are a minority that needs protection. No, there's nothing about Wyoming people that we need to protect. We need to protect Black and Indigenous people from disproportionate levels of violence on an environmental and social level. But no, Wyomingites are not a minority we need to protect. And then we need to expand the Supreme Court. We need to expand the appellate court. The judiciary is the greatest tool that the right has used to weaponize the fact that its ideas, the ideas that are espoused by conservatives, are not popular amongst the American people, but they have rigged and packed the judiciary with right-wing extremists that are hostile to democracy, that the only way that we can hope to accomplish any of our goals is to radically change our judiciary by expanding the bench, by appointing young people, progressives, committed to holding up our civil rights and civil liberties, and allowing our government to actually regulate pollution, which the thing that I'm most fearful of with Amy Coney Barrett is that she, along with Neil Gorsuch, are prepared to gut the EPA. And so with Elizabeth Warren, I saw someone that not only had these progressive policies with plans that were carefully designed, to make sure that they could actually pass in the Congress, but were still revolutionary in nature. She also supported abolishing the filibuster. And I saw her as someone that would expand the judiciary, even though she didn't say those words explicitly. She had a judicial reform agenda, and she had advisors that supported expanding the judiciary. And to me, those are the most critical things we need to do in order to allow us to make the kind of progressive changes progressives are fighting for, whether that be Medicare for all, abolishing for-profit prisons, passing the Equality Act, licensing for firearms, all sorts of stuff.
When you say progressive, what is the definition to you of a progressive? And I don't mean just Webster's dictionary definition, because I'm pretty sure everybody in our audience could just look it up. But beyond the political classification of it, why is it that you identify as a progressive? I mean, why not a Democrat? Why not just a liberal? What is the angle that progressivism has that you feel is the good label right here?
Well, to me, progressive means that we need to advance the social welfare of our community, of humankind, because it's just the moral thing to do. And neoliberal capitalism doesn't do it. It doesn't work. We need to recognize that an active government that promotes the social welfare of its people is our moral imperative. And I think that, there are so many labels. People are like, what's the difference between a liberal and a progressive? And, liberal is just one of those words that it means so many different things to so many different people. And there's people will say, oh, I'm a left liberal, I'm a neoliberal, I'm a Keynesian liberal. Yeah. So it's kind of lost a lot of but I feel like progressive hasn't necessarily lost as much meaning. I sometimes call myself a social democrat. It is more pure. You could call me social democrat in the streets, market socialist in the streets, democracy enthusiast. I have a lot of nicknames for my, policy kind of viewpoints, but I do really like progressive. And I think that the key is progress, moving forward to improve people's quality of life, people's living standards.
Now, when you look at what some people reveal on social media, where you say progress, but progress is interpreted by some, hopefully nobody in my audience, but they interpret that as an attack on the essence of what is America. And when you say, oh, I want to expand healthcare or any of these classic progressive talking points, classic right-wingers just react very emotionally. I mean, so much for their little snowflake and all of their facts don't care about your feelings stuff. But I find that they are extremely emotional. I find that they defend their turf with tears in their eye. They get very, very defensive. And it's never good for dialogue, for us to negotiate and actually pass anything or get anywhere, if one side or both sides end up defending their positions, no, not so much as already like a policy, but more like their identity, because they feel like they're in an all-out war. And when you listen to the conspiracy theories that they share, it's kind of sad, because a lot of these people are genuine. Like they don't, the politicians that control them, yes, those are people that don't believe in anything. But I'm talking about the base. Do you have any hope that we will ever be able to, perhaps in a Biden presidency, perhaps in a specific climate, that we will be able to have a conversation where people listen to what you're saying and not imagine that, oh, right, this is, as some extremely right-wing Republicans will say, this is just a conversation that will lead to legitimizing pedophilia. And so, like, when they jump to these extreme conclusions and they feel like they need to conserve their conservative values, right? And then you look up that politician, like I forget her name. There's that senator that is always going on about at One American News, that channel that Trump now loves, where she was just saying the other day, we need to protect our conservative values. And then you look her up online and she just like dumped a bunch of stocks and made millions right before the pandemic. So
Kelly Loeffler.
Yes, her.
Yeah.
Her.
Oh,
yes.
God. Yeah, she's awful. Let's go. What's his name? Raphael Warnock. Yes. He's running against her.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, yes, but obviously we can all agree on, for instance, we need to combat corruption. But I just find that it just makes it so much difficult if there is a sector of the population that just won't listen to us. That just starts, even they pick up for keywords, tags in a conversation, and then just shut off all conversation and do not listen. Do you have hopes of perhaps that being accomplished by more of an establishment Democrat, or a progressive that will just advance no matter what opposition? So, like, I want to see, like, which of these two paths, the one of compromise, the soft-spoken Joe Biden, or one of AOC where it's like, we're never going to convince them, we're the majority, let's just do what we got to do to protect people.
It's tough. I don't think that, we have a very large chance of breaking into the QAnon population. I think it's always worth trying. But we've always had conspiracy theorists and reactionaries and racists and just people that oppose
Alex
any
Jones goes way back. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we aren't going to solve that segment of the population. I think that Biden, and one of the reasons why he was my last choice, excluding Bloomberg in the primaries, is because he was someone who was talking about bipartisanship. And I don't think bipartisanship is a word that we should cherish, because one partisan, the Republicans, are completely and utterly sociopathic and unwilling to do anything that will expand or protect civil liberties or civil rights. And they're just, the people that almost let us default on our debt in 2011, which was just like absurd. They're just horrible people. Like, Democrats, they're not a perfect bunch for sure, but like I think that, but I think Biden has begun to listen to the growing amount of voices that are saying, stop with the whole, we're gonna like reach across the aisle thing. We got to get rid of the filibuster and just pass our agenda. I think he's using the whole bipartisanship as a way to win the election, but I do think that he recognizes, because he was originally saying, no, we're not getting rid of the filibuster, we're going to work with Republicans, and now he's saying it's on the table. And he's saying court expansion is on the table. He said on the table, I have a sliver of hope that we can, pass a budget that, makes Section 8 housing an entitlement program so that we can, put, the unhoused.
Regardless of how much Trump wants to protect the neighborhoods for the Karens. Yeah.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started on the NIMBY Karens. A lot of them live in my own neighborhood.
So you know the phenomenon.
Yeah.
But I really do like how it seems that some of the early positions that were just like, oh, too radical, too socialist for Joe Biden to adopt, you see that he's no longer timid about it. And that's just what he needs to, at this parallel to bringing in that young vote that wants no more politicking, but actual change, structural change like you wanted. But at the same time, it's not something that's going to intimidate the undecided voters, because the undecided will judge for themselves and say, do we want more of an administration that did not know how to handle the pandemic, despite us being, you know, a superpower, and they claimed that it was for Wall Street, and yet the economy still crashed anyway. So like we lost both. We couldn't even like save one. So I think Biden does have a chance of winning the undecided voters. Obviously, we're going to try to get this video edited out before the election, but big surprise there as to what would happen. Do you think that Trump winning the re-election is like total disaster for America? Because I keep hearing, granted, I do go around Democratic circles, but just this morning, for instance, I was in the middle of this conversation and the Democrats are just saying, oh, if Biden wins, if Trump wins, we are lost. America just cannot survive 4 more years. Is that an exaggeration? Like, do you think American institutions can take 4 more years of Trump, or are we dealing with something that's super important that and does it pose a threat already to the very existence of America? I mean, how do you see it? Like, would you survive, you as an individual, as a progressive? Can you take 4 more years of Trump?
As an individual, as a person of privilege, a white, you know, straight passing cisgender man living in the suburbs, I'll be probably okay. But I don't think our institutions can survive. And I think that the most important institution, the Environmental Protection Agency, won't survive. I think that, you know, the most important thing we have to recognize is that there is a point of no return on climate change where we will face a situation in which our planet will just become uninhabitable for the majority of humankind in not too distant a future if we don't rapidly decarbonize. And that's why I just see it so paramount. You know, it's about whether or not I can have kids and grandkids and live in South Florida like my grandpa did, you know, or whether or not South Florida is going to become Venice or worse, you know, completely underwater.
No, just today, like I'm just scrolling through Instagram, trying to cheer myself up a little bit, and I'm just, because it mainly depends on who you follow, and I'm saying, we lose every 2 seconds, we lose approximately, I think it was a football field of rainforest because of pasture. 20% of deforestation is because of toilet paper and paper towels. I'm just thinking, how are we gonna turn this around? Because like I've always thought, paper towels to me are a true waste. I see that as like, oh, that's so upper middle class American, right? Like the whole concept of paper towels and tissues and all this. And then you bring in coronavirus in there as well, where you see that businesses are having to spend just so much money on these sanitizing gels and sprays and all that. And then, well, I'm pretty sure you've seen all these images of like people's discarded masks and gloves everywhere in ponds and lakes and the beaches. But I feel that because people are just so concerned now about losing their jobs and not having health care, that the environment is one of those things that just keeps being pushed away. I think that we are at a very serious time. I just read up that millennials, only 13% of millennials can afford a down payment on a median-sized home. Do you feel that now, because we had serious problems in society, now with the pandemic where you saw that the ultra-rich have gotten enormously rich because of the pandemic, do you think we can now for sure say, okay, for the majority of us, the American dream is impossible?
I mean, it's certainly a fantasy, the American dream. It's the idea of social mobility. It was supposed to be our thing, and it totally was like 40, 50 years ago. If you look at, I mean, it was for white people. We had obviously a very explicit racial discriminatory legal system and tax system and whatnot for most of our history. But after World War II, for about 30 years, we were that American dream in which families could, were doing better. Young people were doing better than their parents. People were buying homes. They were able to build wealth. And it's because of big government. It's because of things like the Highway Act. It's because of things like the Homestead Act that help people buy homes, the FHA. There are so many, quote unquote, big government policies that really did lead to the American dream actually happening. And so we just need to bring it back. But this time, include marginalized communities, include people of color. And that's the recipe for a prosperous future. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, we definitely want more and more people to have access to that prosperous middle class. But when you speak of privilege, do you find that it's hard, impossible to do activism, to engage in all these activities if you're not a person that's privileged? I mean, like when you go to like a protest or when you engage in volunteer work of any kind, do you ever feel like you're the only person of privilege in the room? Like here in South Florida, what kind of circles of volunteers do you move around in? Do you often feel like you're the person that was a little better off or not?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't, and I miss meetings. I don't go to, but I try to attend Black Lives Matter meetings and Dream Defenders from time to time. I've been to some Sunrise Movement meetings and March for Our Lives. Been to at least one Moms Demand Action, even though I'm not a mom. And just different things, healthcare rallies. Whenever there's something going on, I hear about, I get an email, I see a notification. If I can go, I try and make it. And I don't know, obviously there's the fact that, a working class people that don't necessarily have privileges I grew up with have schedules that are less able to change. So maybe they're less able to go up to protest that way, and I like to think of, when we're trying to speak at public commissions and forums, like we're trying to lobby our county commission to support a civilian oversight or, defund the Broward Sheriff's Office by 30% or whatever. I'm thinking, well, with my job, it's super flexible. I can hop on a 10 o'clock meeting, but, not everyone can, and so there's privilege in that respect. But I think my greatest privilege is just the fact that I don't have to worry about being evicted, and I think it's my moral responsibility to take that privilege and, stop the unjust evictions crisis that's going on right now and do whatever I can.
No, I was mentioning this because I have gone to different types of events, and I was commenting the other day with my brother, and I was telling him that we have a lack of a bigger amount of the regular volunteers. Because sure, if you have a specific cause, you could maybe with a good campaign on Facebook or Twitter, you could rally enough people, like how we've seen here the latest protest for Black Lives Matters. Those are good crowds. A lot of people went there in comparison to other types of events that at most you'll have 20, 15 people. But I do find it that there is, let's say, a tendency to come across people that have struggled, people that know what it's like to struggle to pay your bills, to perhaps have health care, to sometimes to pay gas, to eat, to keep the light on, to have a good, healthy relationship with FPL. But other times it feels that when you go to certain Republican circles, then you see that there's a lot of private business owners and people who like to pretend that they're so intellectually superior to the working class people. And so bearing in mind that I read this study that empathy levels are down considerably with each new generation. I think they were saying that it was like down 40% with Generation Z or something. Do you think that it is possible through activism to break through that, I didn't experience this, but I am giving my heart to this? Because while I think there's a lot of merit in itself if you did go through some trouble to try to alleviate it for everybody else. I think there's a lot of merit when somebody did not go through trouble, but still has enough heart to put themselves in the position of that other person. Like, I think that deserves a gold medal in itself, where even if you never knew what it was like to have serious economic financial problems at home, that you pitch in and actually do community work and try to help out people that just don't make enough money, even with 3 jobs. Mm-hmm. So I know I extended myself a lot because I have a tendency to do monologues. I mean, I do have a radio show. But do you think it's possible to break through that? That human limitation? Maybe the question just got a little bit more philosophical. But have you seen it? Do you think it's possible to have, let's say, a Republican that has all the privilege in the world? Do you think it's possible for them to understand just how much of a toxic childhood you can have? And it is a known fact also that if you grow up in a very noisy, tense, high, stressful atmosphere, that reduces your IQ for life. Like, there are certain situations in a child's upbringing that will limit his options when he grows up. In fact, stress and early childhood has even been linked to addictions of all sorts. And you know, here in Florida, like we may like have this image outside that people come here to retire and to relax. All the snowbirds come to relax here, but Florida has a serious opioid problem. So there are many people here that are struggling. Like,
and you'll
Florida
see it in all the rehabs, or they call themselves rehabs or sober homes. I mean, they're all over the place, and God knows how they're actually performing because we don't regulate them.
Well, you can start one. You know, that's anybody can start one of these clinics, and then you receive government money, and then you run these clinics. In fact, that there are horror stories of corruption, of course, and people who are not taking care of the addicts and just pocketing that money, because you know, Florida also has a serious corruption problem. But when you do activism here in South Florida, have you encountered nastiness on the street? I mean, how is it? Because I feel that we're here in South Florida at like the vanguard of the ideological battle for promoting humanist working class policies. So have you had nasty encounters, or have you had the great luck of only meeting wonderful people on the streets?
It seems like my nasty encounters are almost always online because nobody has the guts to say what they're thinking to my face.
You must be
but maybe it's also because they feel more comfortable talking down to a person of color because, you know, they're racist. But you know, I mean, I don't know. When people are nasty to me, it's on Facebook, it's in comment threads, and you know, it's dismissing, you know, concerns that don't afflict them. But overall, I don't know, when I'm protesting the streets, which isn't as often as it should be, you know, isn't as often as I'd like it to be. I don't know. I kind of I'm with a collective. We're all marching together, and
so it's been a positive experience. That's good. I mean, we don't want to scare anybody, any young person that's there thinking like, oh my goodness, it's so tough. No, go out, protest. You should be safe as long as you go in a group. Just like, for instance, if you go like canvassing, you should never knock on anybody's door alone. You should always go with somebody. Because, you know,
it's less efficient. But like, I know. I mean,
it's just that we have stand your ground laws here in Florida. I mean, at least I don't advise it. If somebody's going to be canvassing on my watch, I would say try to go with somebody else. Like try not to go alone.
Yeah.
And if you're going alone, I don't know, keep a phone on you or something.
Yeah. Well, you're going to need it because you got minivan open. You know, but I feel like it's so racialized. It really is, and gender, and there's a gender factor as well, because you know, if you're a woman or a person of color canvassing by yourself, it's just so much more dangerous than if you're a white man.
Maybe I'm just reflecting then my personal experience.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and it's important to listen to those experiences to guide, you know, how you know, instruct your canvassers if you're an organizer yourself. If you're organizing, whether it be for minimum wage increase. Can we talk about Amendment 2? I think it's going to pass. We are going to have a $15 minimum wage in Florida. Yes. I'm very happy about that. That's exciting.
Yeah, I really like to do. I did a show recently in Spanish where I just went with every single amendment. I was telling people about it, like the jungle primaries, about that. What do you think about that, by the way? What's your opinion on that?
It's a very silly concept. I mean, I believe that independence,
but it's not. It's of course the silliest one is Amendment 1.
Yes, the silliest one is Amendment 1. I will agree with that.
That's the crown.
Oh my god. Yeah. Amendment 1. Hey, well, guess what? You can't vote if you're not a citizen. Well, you can already. Oh, yeah? Well, we're saying it twice. Like, what? And, I feel like it's also ridiculous because there are places in, like, California where they allow undocumented people to vote in municipal elections. So it's not federal election or statewide election, but it's municipal. And why not? Like, what's the big deal? What are you afraid of? Like, the xenophobia. Yeah. Amendment 3, the jungle primary. It's not a good idea. We should have so many different democracy reforms. There's so much that I'd love to do. But the jungle primary, like what if, okay, so in 2018, we had 5 Democrats that ran for governor and there were 2 Republicans. Now, more people voted for the Democrats, but the 2 Republicans had higher percentages of the vote. So if it was the 7 of them running on that one ticket, the runoff would have been 2 Republicans. The Democrats would have been locked out. And we would have had no chance. And so it's just a bad idea.
Yeah. Originally, like one of my brothers was saying, yeah, hey, I'm a registered independent. I like this. And so like we actually ran through it and we just decided, yeah, it's no good. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it might work in California, not here.
I mean, yeah, California, like there's no chance of a Republican winning Senate or governor. So like they don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I mean, I think we should have independents be able to vote in Republican or Democrat primaries. Yeah. We should have ranked choice voting. We should have public elections.
Yes. With the minimum wage, I just thought it was ridiculous of how Trump was trying to like downplay it. Like, no, let's have it at the state level. But Trump, I mean, in the last debate, he promised that he would give us a better minimum wage back in 2016. Like, there were just so many. I mean, can you believe in 2016 Trump actually said he was going to give us all free health care? It's like, what? Yeah. He was willing to just say anything at that point. Anything you want.
Just like, I'm just going to say some stuff that the left is going to like. And then,
exactly.
Yeah, but like what's crazy is he also like one of the reasons he won, people don't even realize, he like would run these ads saying, I'm not going to cut your Social Security and Medicare like these other Republicans are. And then he kept proposing budgets that cut the Social Security and Medicare. So it's, it's so absurd that we take what he says seriously because he's like more dishonest than like a normal politician will lie to you. Like there's no doubt politicians lie of all stripes. But it's never been this bad. It's just never been this bad.
No, it's like in 2016, he ran on that, I'm an outsider appeal, just like how you saw in the last debate when Biden just looked into the camera, started getting like really professional. Trump was trying to like, no, stop it. Stop hypnotizing people. You could tell that he was like already getting anxious. Like, stop seducing the audience, Joe. You're too good at it, darn it. So he was like criticizing the political professionalism of it. But I don't think that works. Just like running on a laptop and emails. He's not running against Hillary Clinton. And these aren't Joe Biden's emails. This has nothing to do with him personally. There is no, I mean, he said, she said, all that stuff. That's not real. That's not a fact of anything that Joe might have done. And again, it's not 2016. You can run on that. And with the political insider stuff, he is no longer an outsider because he's already become super professional at it. Because for one thing, while he didn't have political experience, he was an insider because he had plenty of experience dealing with the money world. So like he wasn't just somebody who was out of the system and a voice of the silent majorities. But I do have 2 topics that are like really South Florida. And I'm saying this because I was riding the bicycle part of the we ride our bicycles on this every last Sunday of every month, so that the government removes the sanctions against Cuba, because Trump has really, really tightened the sanctions where limitation on remittances, it's just like gotten like really, really bad. And so it's a nonpartisan thing. Like we even invite Republicans to join and to just say, this is for the Cuban family. It's 90 miles from here. Let's have a normal, healthy let's engage with Cuba. Let's remove the sanctions because it's even proven that it would actually create more jobs here in South Florida with us. trade, opening up markets, right?
Yeah. Comparative advantage.
Respecting other countries' right to self-determination and respecting their sovereignty. Yeah. But one of these two signs that I keep seeing everywhere was they were putting it against Danielle Levin-Cava, and one of them was, "This isn't Havana, away with socialism." It's like, socialism isn't on the ticket, I mean, no, it's not there. And the other one was, "Trump is Israel's best friend." So I want you to tackle those two, because I keep hearing these are like everywhere. It's like everywhere. Oh, this is a fight against socialism, which I just thought it was obscene how they keep trying to, the Trump supporters, they keep trying to engage with city officials and try to, like a couple of months ago, like early pre-corona, they were working with the mayor of Miami to do a concert that was an anti-communist concert. And I criticized it altogether because I just thought that's too ideological. Okay, the city of Miami, Mr. Mayor, you can't be hosting this with other people. It's completely wrong. And then, okay, so tell me what you see, what comes to your mind as the response when you see that there's this constant red baiting whenever you try to push for something better, like Medicare for all, and criminal justice reform. Like every time you want to propose something wonderful for society, it just gets smacked down as, sorry, don't dream big. That's socialism. And then the other one, what Trump said. You got to vote Republican, otherwise you're not loyal.
Okay, I've got some thoughts. But first off, yeah, every time that that progressives or progressive aligned politicians have proposed any sort of progress, whether that be not even Medicare for all, but Medicare, socialism,
Social Security as well,
farm aid,
back in the day.
Socialism, yeah, Social Security. Literally every single government program is always fear-mongered rather than defeated by logic, because the logic is that this program, X and Y program, will help people, and it's smartly designed. If your taxes go up, guess what? The benefits are better than the they cancel out the tax increase. It's always fear-mongering because logic never works. And socialism, honestly, when Republicans use that word, they use that at Obama so much, and it just kind of created this kind of like fear of the black welfare queen, the Reagan era fear. Right. And that's what they use. They use it all the time.
But maybe it's backfiring, because I think, the more they push against socialism, the more it creates a hunger, a thirst in people for it. Like maybe it is completely backfiring. But the way that they attacked voting, and now we've seen that millions of more people want to vote in this election.
Yeah, no, I hope so.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
I'm feeling. I don't want this recording to be used against me, but I do feel pretty hopeful. I feel hopeful. Okay. We'll see, but I feel like we should all, volunteer and do what we can to make sure that we can defeat Trump and elect some progressives, or as close to that as possible. But I feel hopeful.
Hopeful meaning that you feel that Joe Biden can be a useful tool.
Yeah, that we can win with Joe Biden, and he will allow us to increase the power of our movement so that we can push him and push every lever of government to embrace, an anti-racist, socially progressive, agenda, and economically and environmentally progressive. Now, Israel. I am a Jewish person. I have family in Israel. I visited Israel. I cannot stand the way that Trump uses these disgusting dual loyalty tropes about us, and as if we should care about Israel because it's our country, as he said it. And the Republicans, Israel is the best, blah blah blah. Listen, I want a Jewish nation that is able to protect us from another genocide. I want that. I also want an end to the occupation right. It violates the sort of values I grew up with as a Jewish person, the values right. of self-determination, autonomy, and just social consciousness. The values that I espouse as a progressive, I identify with my Judaism. And I think that,
right, you see no contradiction there.
Yeah, there is no contradiction. And, and I think that the majority of Jews, recognize it. The majority of Jews are not voting for Republicans. The majority of Jews,
it's 70 to 80% vote Democrat.
Yeah, and the majority, they support Israel existing as a state, but they also criticize its government. I think that's a perfectly reasonable position. I think that the occupation is very bad, and I also want there to be an Israel. So there's a lot of policies we can talk about. But and the bulldozing of homes in, parts of East Jerusalem where Palestinians live, that's very immoral. We need to not do that. But I'm still a Jewish person. I'm not betraying my country because my country is America and my values are shaped by my Jewish upbringing. So I'm not betraying anything. And in fact, when Trump and the Republicans use these dual loyalty tropes and they just defend Israel, honestly, they are the real anti-Semites because for one thing, dual loyalty is an anti-Semitic trope. Trump literally has been using George Soros, the Jewish financier, conspiracy theories for, forever. And in fact, remember the caravan? Remember Trump, George Soros is funding the caravan. That's what the Tree of Life mass shooter believed. And that's why he went to shoot up the synagogue. There are Jews dead because of Trump's anti-Semitism. That's the truth. And then also these evangelicals about, we must defend Israel at all costs. Really,
in fact, if I remember, I think there was a statement where Trump had said mainly where he was bragging that moving the embassy to Jerusalem, he did it mainly for the evangelicals. So it's not just for Jewish people, his Jewish supporters. He's also bearing in mind those people because they've all these prophecies that I don't want to get into that, but they support obviously that position.
And I feel like part of it is that they're just more Islamophobic than they are anti-Semitic. And we shouldn't celebrate that as a victory because all hate is disgusting. And, we need all of us to stand together.
I find that it's dangerous to allow a sort of nationalism that will just not be able to be a good friends with the economic uncertainty that we have now. Because if you join chauvinism with poverty, with massive unemployment, that's kind of like the setting that you had prior to World War II, where you have millions of desperate people. And so when you can't get them jobs, right, you create a war, you start saying, well, let's just start finger pointing here. Let's look for some easy scapegoats because we're not to blame. It's somebody else. And that divisiveness is what I don't like about the Trump administration. The thing to say, oh, the Democrats, it's like he almost dehumanizes the Democrats, right? I can get along with a Republican, but I'm not so sure at this point that Republicans can speak to Democrats without that prejudice because I know it's just being a professional politician, but I really liked when Joe Biden said that he's not going to be just a president for Democrats. He's going to be a president for everybody, because that's the kind of thing that we need. And I know you don't want that. You were at the beginning, you were talking about what was the word? You said something about against
the filibuster and bipartisanship.
No. Working across the aisle with doing compromise and that kind of that kind of attitude. But in Trump's America, I think that there is this huge thirst now for at least not forgetting what we stand for, but at least feeling that we can sit at the table with somebody that's not just seeing us as something less than human. Because when you go on Twitter and you see all these massive threads and long discussions where they say, I'm pretty sure you've seen the shirt that says that some Republicans wear, the fringe, they'll say, but still some Republicans. The t-shirt that says, I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat. It's like, no, why would you go there? No, don't do that. No. But
did you see Borat too?
I saw it. I think it was last night. What did you think of it? I mean, The Giuliani scene. Yeah,
Oh my God.
just show on film what we knew, what we suspected.
Yeah. I think it was the funniest movie
He probably
this
thought
year.
it's like he was just going out with one of those blondies from One American News. You've seen them, right? That they all look like they have a one of those beauty
Little,
YouTube
Tommy
channels.
Lahren wannabe.
And the Tommy Lahren.
Yeah.
Did you see that sketch that Sarah Silverman did like 3 years ago, where it was like a factory and they were just pushing them out, these blondes with a Bible and a rifle?
I don't think so, but I love Sarah Silverman, so
I
gotta
will
send
send
that
it
to
to
me.
you. You will enjoy this one because I think what Giuliani liked the most in that bit that scene that they created was the fact that he thought, oh, I'm gonna get one of these bootlicker blondes that just want to have sex and go up the corporate ladder, just not really show any talent, but just sleep their way to success. I'm so glad they nailed him. Like, 'cause we're adults, we know what he was up to. So filthy.
Yeah.
But it is risky though, the type of humor that Borat does. I mean, some of the things are funny in his films, but that's why I think the Anti-Defamation League has said that the humor, it's a little risque. It's a little bit tricky because it doesn't work on all levels, obviously.
It does, and he definitely pushes boundaries. And I think that people will get offended a little bit by his movies, and sometimes he goes over the line. But I think that his intentions are good, and I don't know,
fighting the patriarchy.
Yes, he's definitely fighting the patriarchy. But it's you just have to go into his movies knowing that this is a satire. He's making fun of societal impacts, societal stuff.
Right. And we won't spoil it, but
no spoilers.
I really like the last bit at the part where, and who knew it came from Kazakhstan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think the best scene for anyone who's going to watch it is the debutante scene.
Right. Okay. Well, Jesse, I had a great time during this interview. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure that you make progressivism in South Florida look good. What happened to the blonde?
Can we hang out? Oh yeah, I was blonde. It just it was cute when it was shorter, but then when it was growing long, it was just not as cute, and the roots were growing in dark. But I didn't want to bother my aunt again to dye it back because I didn't. It was only 2 months later, and so I'm just I got it cut really short. But can we hang out sometime? I know coronavirus, but we need to hang out.
Yes, we need to do that. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it a lot. We need to reach across different communities.
Yeah.
And to spread the word for peace, for love, for family, for understanding, tolerance, all the good jazz, all that good jazz.
I love it.
So,
yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Well, take care.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.